welcome to Sarah's Stampin' Retreat. Today we're going to do 5 different cards based around this Touch of Ink stamp set. Now I wanted to do this because this is part of our celebration offering. So this is actually one of the things you can get within tier 2, which means it's free with a £90 purchase. But it's actually a really big stamp set. So I'm going to show you the inside because it's actually a lot bigger than it looks on the front. So you can see you get some really big size stamps, and then you get the other stamps that kind of fill it with almost like a watercolour look wash. And then we've got a few different sentiments. So we've got best wishes, thank you so much. We've got hello friend, love, hope, and thinking of you. So it's a really lovely stamp set, so I just wanted to show a few different ways to use it. So for our first card, we're going to make an aperture card. I've used these stitch shape dies to cut out the apertures, and this is a really good set. If you're still building up your die selection, it's a really good set because you get 4 squares, 4 ovals and 4 circles, so you can make a real mixture of cards with those. So I've used the third biggest one to cut 3 squares out of this card blank, and this is a 7" by 5" card blank made out of Blackberry Bliss cardstock. So it's actually 10" by 7". So I've put it through my die cutting machine like this with the square die, and then I've moved it along to create 3 different apertures. Now the only problem with this is there's not much space between the pieces, so it's not that strong. So what I'm going to do to strengthen it a bit is just put a bit of acetate behind those squares, so that then we kind of get the same look of that aperture window, but it's going to be a bit stronger. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop this. This is some tear and tape, and I'm just popping this along either side. And the tear and tape will grab the acetate, which is what I want. But then I also want these little frame bits to stick to it because that will help strengthen it. So I'm going to pop a little bit of glue on those. The tear and tape's obviously too wide to go in that bit. So I just want a nice thin little bit because I don't want it to splodge out the sides. I just want to make a nice thin little bit. And that's the really nice thing about this glue, is it comes out really easily in a nice little thin line. I don't even need to really squeeze it, it just comes out. Right then, so then I'm just going to put that across there. And then I've just got this piece of purple posy cardstock, and that's just 1/8 of an inch smaller than the card front. So it's 6 7/8 inches by 4 7/8 inches. I'm just going to glue that inside my card. So you can see that now that's not bending in the same way. It's like a lot stiffer now, so a lot stronger. So I'm happy with that. So now I want to have a butterfly sitting in each aperture. So I'm just going to stamp the butterfly in some Blackberry Bliss ink so that it coordinates with the card front. So I'm going to stamp that 3 times. And you've got this piece that gives like a watercolour wash to these, but I don't want that look for this card, so I'm going to use my stamping blend. I've got Highland Heather stamping blends here just to colour this in. And the stamping blends, if you've not seen them before, you get a nice kind of brush type end, and you also get the nib end. So I'm going to use the brush end. I prefer using that end for most things. I'm just going to use the dark one for kind of the inside bits of the butterfly. And then maybe just these bits and tips as well, the wings. So this one's going to be a very purple card, but you can obviously do it in whatever colours you want. And then use the darker one again for the body of the butterfly as well. So I'm just going to do that same thing on all the butterflies. So then I'm going to take my stamping snips, which are these really nice sharp scissors, and I'm just going to cut these out. I'm just going to leave a small white border around the outside, so I want them to stand off the page. So I've cut out the 3 butterflies. Then the other thing that I've done, so I was just thinking about my card and I want these popped up on here, but I thought then that's going to be a really messy inside of my card. So what I've done is I've chopped that bit off the front of my card and I've just cut it down very slightly, so it's now 4 3/4 inches across here. So it's 7 by 4 3/4, still with the same apertures. I've kept that on the back, so I've just literally cut it off the front of the card. So if you want to make this, you need a 4 3/4 inch by 7 inch piece of Blackberry Bliss cardstock, and you want to cut the 3 apertures, the same as we did earlier. Put the acetate on the back, and what I've decided to do is that instead of just having a Purple Posy mat inside the card, I'm going to pop this up on a Purple Posy card. So this is a 5 inch by 7 inch Purple Posy card blank. So I just thought I'd leave that part of the process in so you can see. Quite often I'll start making a card and I'll think partway through, you know what, this just isn't going to work the way I want it, and then I'll change my mind. So I just wanted you to see that if something's not going the way that you want it to, then you can always just change it up and chop and change a little bit. So I'm just going to pop these up on here. So I want one in each square. So I've got some dimensionals. And it's actually really funny how these things develop, because originally I was going to have the Blackberry Bliss card base, as you saw, and I thought, well, I'll have the butterflies on the inside of the card like that, popping through the apertures. And then when I cut the apertures out, I thought, well, these are too thin and they were bending a bit, so I thought, right, I need to change it. So then I thought, well, I'll put some acetate on and I'll pop these up on the front. And then as I was just cutting out the butterflies, because I was going to just pop some Purple Posy cardstock there, and then as I was cutting out the butterflies, I suddenly thought, well, actually the back of the butterfly is going to look pretty ugly through the front of the card. So time for change number 3. So you see, that would be a pretty ugly inside the card, wouldn't it? So then I thought, actually it'd just be nicer if I just pop it up on there, and then it would look really pretty. So I've just got this piece of cardstock. It measures just over 1/4 inch wide by 7 inches. So I'm going to pop that along there, and I'm going to cut a sentiment. So I've just got a piece of Purple Posy cardstock that measures 1.5 by 3/4 inch. I'm just going to put my thank you so much on there. And Blackberry Bliss ink, and then I've just got a piece of cardstock here that is 1 3/4 by 1 inch. I'm just going to pop that on the top of it. So then I'm just going to glue the strip across the front of the card. And I'm going to pop a couple of dimensionals on the back of it. I'm going to use some of our 3D foam strips to just put across here. And these are quite thick because they're designed to use with the shaker card, so it'll give it a nice bit of depth off the card. So I can just peel this off and add it to the front of my card. So there's that first card. I'm really happy with how that's turned out, even though we chopped and changed a little bit. Okay, so then for our next card, we are going to use another one of the celebration items. So this you get for this you can choose for free if you spend £45, and you get 4 different colourways within this: Bermuda Bay, Blackberry Bliss, Granny Apple Green, and Rococo Rose. So you can see you get the ombre with the circles on it. You get the normal ombre. And then on the back you've got the green ombres. And then here's the pink version, so you've got the pink with the Bermuda Bay on the back, and there's more pink with the Bermuda Bay on the back. So you get 4 double-sided different designs. You can see you get plenty in there, so you get actually 12 of each one, so you've got lots and lots to play with in there. So I decided to use Bermuda Bay for this card, so I've used a piece of the Bermuda Bay ombre from that pack. So I've got a 5 by 5 inch Bermuda Bay card blank, so that's 10 inches by 5 inches scored and folded in half. Then I've got a basic white mat that measures 4 3/4 inches, and then this piece measures 4.5 inches. Then I've got this piece that measures 3 inches and this piece that measures 3 1/4 inches, and that's going to be what we do our stamping on. I thought I'd get out my blending brushes again today. You saw my Pretty Perennials video from last weekend. You'll see I used them for the first time then, and I love them so much that I thought I'd use them a bit today. And today I just want to use the Coastal Cabana, and I just want to achieve kind of a bit of a light wash look just in the middle of this piece. Now I decided to use the Coastal Cabana because I didn't want it to be as dark as the Bermuda Bay. It goes quite nicely with it. I just want to get a bit more on that central bit. There we go, I think I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to wash that with water and it'll go back to a nice white. So I'm just going to make the Hummingbird the star of the show here. So it's going to go in the middle of that there. And then I think I'm going to use the sentiment, the thank you sentiment again, just down the bottom. I'll probably stamp those both together. So now I'm getting the layout that I want. I clearly didn't clean my stamp well enough after I used it last time, but hey, let's try and line that up. So then I've got the piece that kind of watercolour wash colours the bird, if that makes any sense. And I've got my crumb cake ink, and I'm just going to stamp it in crumb cake. And then I'm just going to add a few little hints of colour, so I'm just going to put a little bit of the Poppy Parade just here. And then I think I'm going to use the light shaded spruce just to add a little bit to the tips of his wings. And I'm just being very light and very haphazard here, just because it's kind of got a watercolour type look anyway, so I just want to add a little bit of colour rather than really properly colouring it in. And that way you can add some colour really quickly without spending ages colouring something in. So I'm happy with that now, and I'm just going to layer that all up. So this is actually a really quick card to make, because we didn't do very much colouring, so I laid down that colour really quickly. Then I'm just going to add some dimensionals to the back of this just to lift that up a bit. So there's our second card. So then for our third card, I've got my 4x4" wreath template. Now we made that the other day on one of my videos, so I'll link to that below in case you didn't see that video, but I'm not going to go through how to make the template again today because we just did that a couple of weeks ago. So I'm just going to grab my magnet and I'm going to pop that there, and then I want to use this leaf just to cover the corners of this. So we're not going to make a full wreath, we just want to cover the corners with it. So I'm going to put that down like that, and I'm going to use this is a 4x4" piece of Whisper White cardstock. I'm just going to turn that over because you can see I didn't really clean my stamp well enough, so I'm just going to put that in there, pop that down there, and I'm just going to ink this up with just jade ink. I'm going to stamp that down. And then I've got this piece here that fills this in, so I'm just going to lay that over the top. And then I'm going to ink it up. Now I've got a piece of scrap here. You can see I was just using this to look at colours earlier. And I'm just going to stamp it on here first because I want it to be a second generation stamp. I don't want all the colour to be on it. So then I can stamp that second generation there. And you can see this is where I've used the first generation stamp to fill it in. And this is the second generation. And I just wanted that slightly lighter colourway. So we're going to do that all the way around on all our corners. So I'm just going to turn it 90 degrees. And then I'm going to repeat the process. So then you can see we've got this lovely kind of ring around the centre of our card. So then I'm just going to use, you can see this is the piece of paper that we didn't clean the stamp well enough for. So I'm just going to use this scrap of paper just to print a butterfly on. So I'm going to use my black Memento ink and I'm going to stamp that on there. And I'm just going to bring my stamparatus in again for a minute. I'm going to stamp this over here. So I'm going to start off by just popping a bit of bumblebee just on there like that. And we used this technique a couple of weeks ago when I was doing a stamparatus video. just going to pop the Calypso coral around the edges. I just liked it so much that I thought I'd use it again for this card because I really like this colour combination. So then I'm just going to use my black Stampin' Blend just to colour in the body. And then I'm just going to cut this out. So I'm going to pop that on there. So then I just want to find a place for my sentiment. So I'm just going to ink that up with my Memento black ink again. And I'm just going to put a few dimensionals around here. So then I've just got a piece of Calypso coral cardstock that measures 4¼ inches square and a 5 by 5 inch card blank. And I'm just going to pop that on there. And I'll glue that onto my card. So that's our third card finished. Then for my fourth card, I'm going to use this flower stamp. I'm going to use my Memento ink. I'm just going to stamp that down the side of my card. So I'm going to do it at some different angles, but it doesn't all look too samey. And then I'm going to grab my Hummingbird again and then stamp that in black as well. And then I'm going to use my Stampin' Blends to colour that in. So I'm going to use the Calypso Coral for the flowers. And I like to just add a bit of dark in first and then go over with the light. And then I'm going with just a little bit of the shaded spruce. And then I'm just going to use my dark mango melody for in the middle of those. And I'm going to colour in the kingfisher, so I'm just going to do a little bit of red on this in there. And then I'm going to use the shaded spruce just to add a bit of extra colour to some of his feathers. And then I've just got my soft suede, which I'm just going to finish off with. And I'm just going to pop that little thank you in there. That's just a really simple stamped thank you card. And then for our final card, I thought we might go for a bit of black and white with a splash of colour. So I'm just going to ink this up in black. I'm going to stamp this all over here as like a stamp background. And then I'm just going to use my smoky slate ink just to stamp over the top of that. And I'm going to use this that fills in the leaf stamps that we used on the first card. And you'll see in a minute it does dry a little bit lighter than it stamps initially. So now we've got this cute background, and I'm just going to layer that up. So this is on basic white cardstock, and I've just made that 1/4 of an inch smaller than my A6 card front. So I've got an A6 card in basic black. Then I just want to add a splash of colour with a butterfly. So I thought that we'd stamp and colour the butterfly this time, but that we'd use colours similar to the ones that we used on the last card so that you can see the difference. So I'm going to use the dark Calypso Coral and the dark Melon Mambo. You can see these are really vibrant colours that I've chosen to use. I really like the look of this against the black and white that we used on the background. And it's something that really stands off. And I'm just going to do the body in basic black. And then I'm just going to cut around this. So then I've just stamped "Thank you so much" on a small piece of basic white cardstock. And then I'm going to just glue that onto a piece of basic black cardstock that's 1/4 of an inch bigger. And then I'm just going to stick this piece, this is about 1/4 of an inch wide, of basic black cardstock just across my card. And then I'm just going to add the sentiment and the butterfly with some Stampin' Dimensionals. I just think this adds a nice different look to the cards that we've been making today. So that's our final card completed, so I'm really pleased with that, and I'm just going to bring in the other card. So there's all our cards for today. I really hope you've enjoyed today's projects. If you did, I'd really appreciate you clicking like below, and you can also press subscribe to see any future videos that I release. If you click the bell button and select all, then you'll be notified when I release new videos. All the products that we've used to make today's cards will be linked in the description below. And there's also a host code there. If you pop my host code into your basket before you check out, then I'll send you a free gift after the end of the month. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.